Hey everybody, it is time for another episode of NHL Remember Him. I believe this is episode 43. And today we're going to be looking at the NHL career of a longtime two-way defenseman who really blossomed through the 2000s and I think became one of the more underrated defensemen of that decade. Had a very, very strong NHL career for a long time in the league, and that is Bryan McCabe. Before we get into it, I just ask you to please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It helps out so much and is greatly appreciated. But Bryan McCabe is certainly a guy that I remember mostly from his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also played with the Florida Panthers, was the captain of the Panthers for a while. But really, really good two-way defenseman that I almost kind of forgot about. But then when I heard the name, I went, wait a second, he was actually really good. And we'll take a look here at the career of Bryan McCabe. He was a defenseman, left shot D-man, drafted in the second round, 40th overall by the New York Islanders back in 1993. And he went on to play over 1,100 games in the NHL, 1,135 to be exact, scoring 145 goals, 383 assists for 528 points and a plus 34 career rating. And on top of that, he played 56 playoff games, scoring 10 goals, 18 assists for 28 points and a plus 6 rating. Started his career with the team that drafted him, the New York Islanders. Played there from 1995 to 1997. Then the 1997-98 season, he was traded from the Islanders to the Vancouver Canucks. Played a full year in Vancouver during 1998-99. Then went to the Chicago Blackhawks in 1999-2000. Finally found a long-term home, though, for the 2000-2001 season. And that was with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he played all the way through 2008. And he became a stalwart of the Leafs defense, a top pair guy, and really, I think, one of the more underrated two-way defensemen of the 2000s. Not afraid to play physically, played well in his own zone, but added some big-time offense at times as well. He had multiple 50-plus point seasons with Toronto and really became one of their better defensemen of the decade. And then he went to the Florida Panthers. He was traded and played from 2008 through 2010 with Florida. Was actually the captain of that team and was a really good veteran defenseman for them. And then his final NHL season, which was 2010-2011, he was traded at the trade deadline from Florida to the New York Rangers. And then after that season, he did not play in the NHL again, and he officially retired in 2012. So Bryan McCabe was definitely a guy that I remember from a lot with the Maple Leafs. I remember watching him in Toronto and him being a really, really good defenseman. Obviously, I also remember him going to Florida and playing for the Rangers at the very end. But to me, when I think of Bryan McCabe, the team that jumps into my mind is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he was a very, very good player for them. 3 seasons with 58-plus points, all with the Maple Leafs. His career high, 68-point season. Came in 2005-2006, which was the first year after the lockout. And he was just a really, really good top pair guy for them. And on top of that, he was also much tougher than I originally remember. Like, when I thought back on Bryan McCabe, I was thinking, all right, good veteran two-way guy. Obviously had some really high-scoring years with the Maple Leafs, but he actually has had over 1,700 career penalty minutes in the NHL and 10 seasons with 100 penalty minutes or more. Which I didn't realize he was that tough of a guy and that much of a penalty minute guy and that much of a fighter. And a lot of them came early in his career, which again, when he came in, I was, not even born yet in 1995. But you know, a lot of those came early in his career where I don't quite remember as much, but still, even his years in Toronto, he was not afraid to get involved physically in really throughout his entire career. The penalty minutes did slow down a little bit as he got, you know, older, but he was way tougher than I originally remembered. And seeing his penalty minute totals and what he, you know, did penalty minute wise year after year after year, I was kind of surprised by that when I was doing the research for this. So Bryan McCabe really was a two-way defenseman. I mean, obviously he could put points on the board and had some really strong offensive seasons, but he was tough, physical, and played well defensively too. And I guess, I mean, you don't last over 1,100 games in the NHL if you don't really, you know, play well in your own end as well. So, you know, over 1,100 games, over 500 career points, over 1,700 career penalty minutes. Bryan McCabe really was the total package on the back end. And I really think he's one of the more underrated defensemen of the 2000s, because you don't really hear a lot about him anymore, despite him having so many great seasons. And it's funny, he currently actually still works with the Florida Panthers organization. He works in their front office as the director of player personnel. So he is an executive in the hockey operations department for the Florida Panthers, and I believe has been since 2017. So still a part of the Panthers organization, still a part of the NHL and around the game of hockey. And he's a guy that I remember watching growing up as a kid, and him being one of the best, you know, players on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And going back and just looking at his career as a whole in preparation for this video and whatnot, he was a really, really good defenseman. And definitely somebody worth remembering. Definitely somebody that those of you that may not remember him should look into and kind of just, you know, take a look at his career and what he was able to do. Really, really solid two-way defenseman for a long time in the NHL. And a really, really good player, and a guy that I, you know, remember well from Toronto, Florida, and at the end, New York. So that is going to do it here for episode 43, and the NHL career of Bryan McCabe. This is another episode of NHL Remember Him. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store donation link and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.